All righty. Adjusted there a little bit more, so we got there we go. Trying to get it all into the shot here. Everything we got going on. Happy Easter to everybody. You see how I'm spending Easter today? Oh, mercy. But anyhow, so this has gotten shipped in for repair. We've also got one build that is actually for another customer that's due. His turn has come up, so we're going to get him his amplifier over here built a little later on. And I've got 2 more orders from last month that I'm going to go ahead and try to get filled as far as with these 2. So one of them is also going to be in, as you guys have seen, the differences in the color of the boards. Hey, good evening. Happy Easter, Jeremy. These are going to be in the Evolution series, and then this is just going to be just, you know, plain Jane, but still nice little 454 amplifiers. The Midnight Special. All right, so this came here to get basically rebuilt, and what it all boils down to is the gentleman wants to use this for sideband, which is great. However, he knows that it probably won't last long, even though this is still functioning with the DEI transistors. It's got 4 1446s in it, so those are going to get pulled out, and we're actually going to go ahead and drop, because he's just going to use radio drive. We've already got him 4 match 2879s that's going to go into the place of this. So good evening, Art, or good afternoon. So let's set those out here. Find my glasses. I'm not blind anymore. Yeah, I hear you, Jeremy. Yeah, work has been quite interesting for me as well here the last 2 weeks. And I'm referring to my other job, not just here in the shop. This is always hectic because I can never get enough done in a day out here. So we're going to get this one done. I'm going to get a good start on these other 3. I'm actually going to have to stop on them. And the reason why is the 2 smaller ones, and with this being just radio drive, I'll be able to run it on my small power supply. I had a gentleman that actually wanted to buy my bench power supply that I've been using for the last few years. So we have to sit down and build a new one. So I won't be able to build anything big until I get, you know, enough supply to run everything up to its fullest potential anyways. So it's kind of where we're at, is one of those where got to do what I got to do. I do have something that'll get me by for the time being, but I got to get it wired up. Some of the other stuff that I ordered didn't come in, so we're actually going to take probably here in about 2 weeks, when I'm in the shop again for full time, I'm going to try to go ahead and have all my cables made up. And for the time being, since I don't have a purchaser for the 350 amp power supply that we just got finished, we're going to use that for temporary while we are building a new, bigger, and better power supply. So that's kind of what we've got coming up as far as here in the very near future. I'm also going to go ahead and pull the power wires out, since those are 10 gauge wires, which for For 1446s, especially considering the fact that they're DEIs, it's sufficient, but not for what we're going to be doing. Why I'm getting notifications that I'm live on my phone, I still have no idea. Sometimes these things are crazy. I am going to go ahead and turn the volume and stuff down on the others. Notifications and all that good stuff. Well, it won't be quite as annoying. All right. So we got those out of there. Hopefully you and the kids and everybody had a great Easter, Jeremy. I know you've still got some young ones there at the house. So hopefully you guys have had plenty of fun, you know, chasing the Easter bunny around and hunting for eggs and all that other good stuff. You know, speaking of which, I don't even have any deviled eggs made up yet. That out of there. Pop that grommet because we're going to put a little bit bigger wire in there. So I know we're going to have to open that hole up. And he's already got a fan and a some type of a fan base, I guess, that this is actually going to be setting on. So, you know, we've got our fan that's going to be blowing down on the top portion of it, and also that's going to be cooling from the bottom. So, all right. Get all the small stuff pulled out, and then we're going to rework it. This little 18 gauge wire is not going to pass for what we're going to be doing. Let's see what we've got in here to work with. And that might be okay. We'll try it and see. This little bitty amplifier, although it's got sideband delay, it doesn't have biasing, so that's something that we're going to be adding to this as well. So we're going to get these chokes out as well, so those are going to get redone. It's going to have to get changed. Sadly, we've got to rewire the input, but it just has to do with what we've got to work with. It's no biggie. Getting ready for work tomorrow. Didn't even realize Art got out of there already. But I've been looking straight down too. All right. There we go. Get the coax off. That's all I'm really concerned with at the moment. There we go. I can reutilize that at least. Yeah, this is kind of a feat to build in one of these, to be brutally honest. All right, so we got 120s from collector to ground. That's good. That means those don't have to be changed. These will. Okay. All right. Now that I probably have to redo. I need to look at my notes since this has got 1-inch transformers in it. See, we can't get that out of there. There we go. So we are going to have to replace the relay. Could have left the relay in there and just put another one in there, but I'm going to be so hard pressed for room. They've got it so tight. Try not to damage that because that can be reused. Don't care too much about the relay. tuning capacitors get kind of expensive. All right. Get that out. Hey, good evening, Gary. Well, good evening, Gary. That is definitely funny, Gary. Definitely funny, buddy. If I remember right, you are down in Florida, I believe. So I'm sure you've had all kinds of fun going on down there here lately. It's just kind of ironic that you use that particular phrase. The reason why I say that, Gary, is I've got two guys that I work with on a regular basis, and that's kind of one of the funny things that always comes out of their mouth on a quite regular basis. So, I find that a little more humorous, especially with the guy named Andy that I work with. He is a ball of hilarity just waiting to happen. Good evening, James. I don't know if this one's yours or not. I don't even know what I did with the note. It's probably back in the box. But the initials sound familiar. Relays. Ah. Yeah, I got my last of my shipment in the other day, so I've got like 100 of these bad boys. That's total. Yep, that one's yours. I figured as much. Well, I'm hoping I can nuzzle this down in there. I've been trying to find an alternate version of this that's small, kind of like what they call the PC mount. Now, granted, this has been destroyed, so I could get it out of there without damaging, some of the other parts. It's one of the things that I'm going to try to actually find is a good quality 3-pole like this, just for this type of application. I've had really good luck from this company here as far as on the relays since I've switched over to them, and it's pretty much other than the exception of a couple of the relays that are very specific. Yeah, like so these things rock. I've not had to replace a single one of them. Unlike some of the others that are out there that are China. Now, granted, China does make these, which they make 90% of our stuff, no matter what's put on there as far as the name. The interesting thing is, though, is this is, made for industry here in the U.S. This relay, if you order it through one of the U.S. companies, costs you about $16. You know, which that's a pretty good chunk of change. You know, since I've been ordering these by the cases, I've actually found a couple of sources where I can order and source my parts direct. But it requires, just like anything else, it requires large purchases at one time. So, you know, it's one of those that growing pains. That's probably the easiest way to put it. Let's take that off of there. Let's get that down back. Don't mind reworking that. That's not a problem. Okay. I can make it go. I just got to make one more slight change. Well, that's good, Gary. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, the transformers are actually the right mix as far as on the formula. That's one of the things that, in many cases, most of us pretty well know what, by looking at it, know what most of it is. There is, and there has been those few alternate times where a couple of the ferrite companies really got some stuff screwed up, and you know, there were several of us, as far as that are builders, you know, we were sitting there trying to rack our brains, you know, man, what's going on? And it was the wrong composition and a wrong ferrite mix, you know, that wound up happening. So now, since that happened and there were so many of us, um, you know, the company that supplies most of the transformers for everybody actually went back and they've painstakingly, you know, go through another check. You know, that unfortunately it does add a little more cost, but when you wind up with something that's serious, you know, well, you got to do what you got to do to make things work as they should. Let's see here. There we go. That's what I wanted. Just going to be easier to replace that and put a new one in it than it is to try to take all that old nasty stuff off and rework it. It just so happens I've already got one ready to go. All we got to do is just cut to length. Yeah, I'm not sure how old this amp is. I know, yeesh, kind of dating myself on this, but I know, just for an example, like 15 years ago, you know, the old foam stuff, that was, sadly, that was kind of the best we had at one time. You know, I know this isn't near that old, but You know, the old foam stuff. I know in the last 5 years I haven't came across anything new, or I shouldn't say new, but old like that people have done in the new builds. You know, in the last 5 years for sure. You know, so I think that's one of those that the system's kind of weeded itself out. You know, in retrospect to, you know, some of the other issues that we've all seen over time. Let's see here. Still quiet. Playing with one of my new toys. And just get a stretch and grab the scissors. Yeah, I had been using the 3M tape for many years now. And I've actually went away now with the, you know, yet another advancement in adhesives. Come across this and I thought, you know, I'm going to try that. You know, the 3M stuff that I've been using has been absolutely phenomenal. And then I came across Gorilla Tape, not just duct tape brand, you know, duct tape type Gorilla Tape, but Gorilla Tape double adhesive, you know, so it's crystal clear, which is also kind of nice. But man, once you put that down, the bonding that it has is unreal, especially considering the small pieces that we typically use right here in the shop. Okay. Now comes the fun part. I will try and be as gentle as I can to get these out. Sadly, I know that nobody, I think, even remotely does anything with DEI, but try to save these as best I can for you. Actually, since I've got this all tore down like I've got it, we got another way we can do this. Should make it that much simpler here in a minute. So I do plan on going ahead and replacing these as well for the little 10 ohmers. Again, there's nothing wrong with them, but they are used. They've been in a DEI circuit. I don't know how much stress or strain that they've had on them. So we're just going to go ahead and yank these as well. You know, you're looking at 15 cents worth of parts. It's not worth it. Almost looks like they've cut some of the legs off on these. Now, one of the companies, because like I said, I've got some really neat stuff coming up. I was told Friday that the special made cabinets that I've got coming, they will be shipped out on Monday, so hopefully we'll see them here in about 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to show you guys as far as some of the new stuff coming up. I think, looking at that, we may have to go one step further yet. Surprise, surprise. We're gonna fit in there just fine. I guess it's just the illusion. All right. Let me rinse this out here. We'll be right back. I'm gonna keep the mess over there. It needs to be in the trash. So sorry, yeah, guys. I'm way over here. Like I said, it's just trying to blow some of the stuff out of it here and get the worst of it into the trash can instead of all over the floor. Just makes my job easier when I go to clean up at the end of the night. All righty. And Q-tips. couple of those. Yeah, now that I'm at the point that I am, wow, I've missed out on a lot of stuff here. Well, hello, Steve. As far as the part that I'm in, I am in the south central section of Indiana. I am approximately 20 miles due west of I-65 at exit 50. So that kind of gives you an idea. But I am in south central Indiana. I am 48 miles from Churchill Downs. "48 miles from there, and about 83 miles from Indianapolis, due south." Let's see here. Yeah, I've got a lot of reading here to do. Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate that, TA. Yeah, it's sad that there is that kind of hate and discontent, that's out there, but I've got basically two of everything. It's just like, the KC 901, that was a new purchase this year, which is definitely an incredible piece of equipment. Between, being a spectrum analyzer, the only thing I haven't tried to use it as is an oscilloscope. I'm not sure, but that may even be something that's actually built into the software as well. I'm not sure on that part, but between the Smith's chart, the impedance, I mean, there's just so many different functions that it actually covers that has been just absolutely, phenomenal. But we've got that. I've got a cheap, Handtech oscilloscope, but most of the time I use that just for the X and Y axis for testing, specific capacitors and like my Xenier diodes while they're still in circuit, just because of the fact that I don't have to switch over and rework and set everything back up on the Tektronix oscilloscope, which, I mean, that was, back in the day when I bought it, it was over $3,000, out of pocket, plus I've got another, piece up here, same thing, spectrum analyzer, and then the Wave Tech over there for the signal generator. Then we go way up, that is made by Wayne Kerr. That's actually a RF signal generator. Back when that came out, which it was made specifically for the military. That was around 3,500. So, equipment's not cheap, guys. Not the good stuff, anyways. Some stuff, we buy as we can. Have a good one, Gary. Oh, hello, Bill. Yeah, like I said, there's lots of things that's just kind of sad. I think what's the most sad is the fact that there is so much work out here and that people think that they have to, go after everybody that's not them, so that they can actually have a, fighting chance at their own work. And, sadly, there's a lot of people that feed on stuff like that. Where is the other cleaner at? What we're interested in is just making sure we can get all the gobbledygook that's been in this thing for several years. Okay. Now that we're at that point, let me grab some heat sink compound. We're going to go ahead and get this taken care of. It's kind of a new formula, and I've been using it quite a bit here lately, but it's a little tackier than the other stuff. It's supposed to have a carbon base footprint that's built into it that, you know, is supposed to be like 20% better as far as on, you know, helping to transfer heat. So far what I've seen, pretty impressed with it. Sorry, I'm just reading some of the comments. Yeah. On the other note, you know, like I said, there is, you know, way more than one human being can possibly do. You know, you know, I think the U.S. population is like 330 million. So if you cut that down to even, you know, 1 million people that actually are on the radio, for you to be able to do 1 million repairs even in 1 year, you know, it's just absolutely impossible. You know, the human body could not sustain what would be necessary to even do that. You know, even if all it was opening up a radio, turning the modulation screw, and putting the covers back on. If you worked for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with no sleep, number one, you'd be dead. Number two, you'd never be done. You know, it's just like coax ends. You know, I thought, oh my God, I'd put on, you know, which meant I've put on thousands of those, and I'm still slow. You know, but it took me almost 5 years to go through a box of 5,000 PL259s one time. Jiminy Christmas, and that was a little over 20 years ago. You realize how many cables that is? You know, not all of them were just, you know, just that. I mean, you know, back in the day, I even did installs on semis. You know, I did it from workbench to, you know, the final show. And that is a lot of coax ends. A lot. You know, but on a happy note, since we are here on Easter Sunday, let's see if I'm caught up yet. Yeah, John, I would have to agree with you. It is definitely an ugly disease, but again, we'll focus on the day that it is and keep moving forward. There's a lot of videos that you guys don't get to see as far as on things that I do, and not every video. For example, do I use the spectrum analyzer? I don't always use the scope in the videos, which, I mean, most of the time I've got 3 projects lined up right behind whatever I'm actually shooting the video for. In some cases it's for somebody that is asked specifically for a video. I've also got some customers that, they'd really rather not people see what they have, and for that I respect their privacy. Most of the time, for example, like this, and this is a perfect example of, there's nothing wrong with it as far as the way it currently was. It did function, with the exception of it had one main little flaw. Um, I should have showed the pre-video, but we both knew what the problem was and left it at that. Went on. That would have made me another video. Really, it wasn't necessary. It's just like BBI does. Geez, oh Pete, he does a lot of videos. But you also have to remember, he's got hours and hours and hours and hours of footage, per day that he is going through. He is sifting, he is piecing together and creating what he's creating. Yeah, exactly. That's some of it. There are a lot of different reasons, and I would probably do a lot more videos than what I do. Quite frankly, I don't have time. That's my biggest thing. Since I went back to work for another company, which, I mean, I've been doing this, even if it's just been part-time, I've been doing this for 27 years total. That's a lot of hours, sitting at this bench. For the last, granted, the bench top has changed, 4 times in the last 20 years, that I have been using this as a workshop. The first table, I wasn't doing radio repair in here on the first table, but it was 1x6 boards that the building started out as. It had 1x6s across this same section, all the way from one side to the other of the building, and they were put in here in the 1920s. That has been a long time. So I pulled them out all, but there's one board left, and it's an upright that is mounted to the to the blocks, and for the life of me, I could never get that thing pulled and pried from the wall. So I left it, and I quite literally built around it. So it is what it is. Then I upgraded within a couple of years. Used that one for quite a few years, which, I cut it down to 6 foot in length, mainly because of the fact that the countertop, I got it at a discount, and it was a really nice piece of plywood. Unfortunately, a forklift had hit the one side of it, so I cut it down to 6.5 feet, which at the time was more than adequate for what I did. We didn't do videos, didn't have a computer, and all that stuff in here, so I didn't need the extra, the extra at that time. Now I'm back to the 4, full length. I put that in 6 years ago and updated it again, just about 3 years ago. Since you see the new wood finish. And the only difference on that is not the length, because it's still 8 feet. I actually came further out away from the wall with this. It's still not a full 4 feet that I have for, workspace, but the back portion of this, where I've got so many parts that hang on the wall, I've got, that huge toolbox that is full of nothing but components. I wouldn't have much room to walk around where I sit down to actually do my repair work. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. It does hurt the hobby. Unfortunately, some people don't know who to believe, as far as, in relationship to, discern what's what. But again, everybody has growing pains. There are some actually pretty doggone good techs. I've got my opinions about some of the stuff that has come across my workbench. That people have paid other shops exuberant prices, to have something done, and they really wasn't all that happy or that impressed with it. Sent it to me and had me go through it, see what my thoughts, opinions were, see what I would change, to get it closer to what, they're looking for. Because ultimately, that's what I'm after, is whatever the customer really and truly is looking for. I make suggestions like some people do. I don't try to talk people into anything insane. Some people I know, that's how I actually got into it, and why I stayed with it for so many years long ago, was because of the fact that, we had, in my community, we had a lot of people that were elderly people, fixed income, didn't have a whole lot of money to spend. My reputation had kept growing and growing as far as here locally. And, they couldn't afford to have their equipment fixed at some of the other shops just because of the, their prices, when you are on a fixed income, it is incredibly hard. And even today, I still work with customers that are on a fixed income. They want something new. They're not always able to come up with all the money at one time, so we sit down and we figure out a plan, either based on what they really want, if they're willing to wait, and essentially do a layaway build, if you will, so that whenever they get, up to whatever it costs them, once they've got at least half of it, I go ahead and pull all the equipment, whether it's transistors, cabinets, what have you, which, mind you, I keep a relatively decent stock. I don't have every conceivable cabinet made. I've actually got a few things that are going to be changing here in the near future, in retrospect to that. I've got 2 custom made cabinets. Wow. 2 different styles. I've literally taken like, $4,000 out of my own physical pocket. Not out of the shop money, but out of my physical pocket in order to go ahead and, have these custom made, and you'll see them. One of which was like the 350 amp power supply, which I still have to do a final video on it. One of the cabinets I've got coming, is for power supply, and I special ordered, yeah, you're seeing a binding post. I had no idea that they actually made binding posts this big without going into some of the others. But I special ordered these for one of the cabinets that I've got coming. So, like I said, neat stuff coming up. But as the demand gets higher and higher for, things that people are looking for that are unique, it's just like one of these days I've actually got another Cobra 2000 speaker I'm actually going to turn around, make a modification for, and we're actually going to go ahead and put small little 2-pill in it and put it up for sale. It's one of the little things. I've got some other, like I said, I've got some other stuff that's going to be coming up later this year. I was hoping to actually get to some of it a little sooner. Sadly, I've had a few repairs that have really taken a lot longer time than I had anticipated on. Who was that? You could get a good look at a T-bone. Yep. That actually is a very, very good saying just because of what it is. Um, yeah, I'm like you. I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. Just easier to use 2 soldering irons. Well, good evening, 3. What's going on, buddy? Yeah, James, different transformers will. The problem that you're going to run into is space. That is your biggest, your biggest thing. Now, I've actually been playing around and I've actually been doing a few different amplifiers using the 1-inch transformers. And honestly, for what you're going to be using this for, since it's going to be just a single drive, single drive as far as just out of the radio, the 1-inch transformers are actually going to be probably better for you because of saturation and what have you. You'll actually wind up getting a little bit more out of it with just radio drive um, because of it. The longer the transformer, although it does help for a lot of different things, you also wind up with one other, you've got little differences as far as in the inductance, and it allows it to be able to take a little bit more drive. Yes, you can ultimately get more power, based on how the build is done. But because of what we're going to be doing, the length of this, for example, this is very, very small. This is what I'm using for board length and stuff. This is for 454 build. So you're already seeing, we've got another half an inch, half to 3/4 of an inch at least. I'd say we've got a good 3/4 of an inch longer, to work with. So there is some differences, and I've seen people build, and if you even go back and look at, just for an example, Texas Star, as bad as I hate working on those, or dislike, maybe a better word, and a lot of it has to do with the hidden traces, where it makes it very difficult for you to go through and be able to find some of the problems that they have. So that's the reason why I just really dislike messing with them at all. Versus like a hand-built amp or some of the others that I've seen. But your biggest thing that you're fighting right now is physical size. There's just not enough room to really, maximize this to its fullest potential. But again, your radio that you're going to be using has got more than an adequate amount of drive, for this particular scenario. Like I told you earlier on the phone, basically you're just going to be loafing this along. So it'll work out. It'll work out in the end with what we've got. And let's grab somewhere. Little stubber relay. Again, this isn't something that you have to have. It is very good practice to use one. Well, 3, did you have a good Easter, buddy? Did you eat all the kids' deviled eggs or boiled eggs or anything, or? I know I'm going to be doing spaghetti later on. Leastwise, that's what's on my game plan for dinner tonight. Well, did you ever put your Tesla coil together? Man, what a tight fit. Come on, baby, let go. Actually, Teflon. I don't understand that either. Now I know in some cases, which for the most part, everybody builds what I call a common amplifier. Now, when you go into something very, very unique or special, and there's not anything super out of the ordinary as far as on, some of the ones that I do. Part of it also depends on, the customer and what their wants are. But yeah, I've seen that as far as on the, go a few different times myself, where people have actually had issues getting rid of, a used amplifier. So, and I think a lot of it's the fact that they think that there's something wrong with it, whenever there's just, let's see here. I need to read up, huh? Someone I don't want. Why is it so hard to get? Let's see. Oh, like this? Some of it's the name. Some of it people have never heard of. Some of it people have. Whenever these have been gone through and taken care of, there's a lot of different, reasons, that, people won't buy it. Some people are just afraid because they see a particular name and, well, I don't know anything about this. Well, it's understandable. Like I said, not all of us are, as well known as others. Some of it is, some of it people can sell ice to Eskimos too. You don't want sloppy seconds, and that's some of it too. There's a lot of new builders out there, and some of them have really come up. Um, some of them will will say have surprised me as far as where I've watched different ones over the course of the last couple of years. You know, that's just like some of the amplifiers that I've built. I've had some of them that I've built just specifically to set on the shelf and turn around and sell, and I can't keep them. I can't keep them built fast enough. Uh, and then somebody asked for something extraordinarily large, for example, a 12 pill. I've only built a couple of 12 pills in the last 6 years. It's not something that's real common that people are after. Um, I had one sitting on the shelf for a year and a half before, it finally sold. But part of it too is the fact that I went just a little bit too far above and beyond on the build itself. Good afternoon, Amy. Happy Easter to you as well. At the point that we're at here, just for an example, this, even though it still says Midnight Special on the front, I think that's a sticker, it's actually not a Midnight Special anymore. It is in name only. Yeah, as far as that goes, I don't know either. A lot of it, as far as on, brand new amplifiers that people have ordered and then decide they don't want, I really don't understand why. Um, but some people, it's just like if you had the chance to buy a BBI amp for, what I charge, just for an example, um, more people would jump on that just because of, brand recognition. Um, not that it's any better or any worse, but it's just product name. Yeah. Try to get a little bit more here into the picture. N251. Well, hello. I don't recognize the login on that one. Just checking, make sure it actually is good wire. Sadly, you have enough come in like that that doesn't actually have Teflon wire in it. You kind of get to the point where you're ready to double check everything. You know, and at this point, now's the easiest time. Just a second here, guys. Yeah, I got kind of a nifty new tool that I finally got for Christmas. 3 sent me a couple of months later. It's okay, I got one of his Christmases to him, you know, a year late. So mainly because I just misplaced it. But I took and had the blades sharpened. The one, I wasn't sure how much to have taken down, so I'm gonna have to take the one blade back in and get it touched up just a little bit more. But it's a really nice shear, you know, for, you know, copper, circuit board, stuff like that, you know, to help cut them. Really great. We can do that, James. If you would like, it's up to you. Like I said, I can pull that off. I have got where's it at? There it is. I have new versions. I still have a few of the older style. You know, you're welcome to choose whichever one you'd like as far as that goes, and then I'll find the appropriate size that fits it. In this particular application, since we're doing everything as it is for this build, this is going to be built essentially on the evolution, you know, on the evolution scale with this amplifier, just because of what you're using it for. So, like I said, I've got multiple sizes. God knows I have spent more than enough for them. And I had forgot that I already had measured one out. I'll tell you, that sure beats the heck out of the way I was doing it. Having that shear. Granted, I can cut this with, you know, hand shears real easy, but that other is so nice. later on this summer, if I can get the other add-on done, I'm going to move a lot of the stuff that is in here that's basically taking up storage space. I'm actually going to try to get it out. We're going to get a few more machines actually in here. I've got a lathe yet to bring into the shop here, and I've also got, for example, the cutting board. I want to make some kind of a pull-out tray where I can go ahead and utilize that. The lathe, where I can go ahead and start making some of the other custom pieces and parts for standoffs. There's a lot that's going to be going on during the course of the 2021. As far as out here in the shop, where I'm getting tooled up essentially for, more and more specifics. So. Okay, we can do that. And that's going to take a minute. All right. And I'm also going to put a little foot on here that way. It's just that little extra for that, just in case it would droop and sag down and potentially short out. Not worried about setting those just yet because I've got other things I got to get moved around. And I don't want to listen to that static anymore, so we hit that auto squelch. Okay. Remember how we were talking about that foam tape? This wasn't, you seen how easy it was for me to just literally lift it up. So, well, good afternoon, Tracy. Try to cut some of this excess off. Not that it would hurt anything to leave it, but if we just get it over here to the corner. We can get that little gal just nuzzled right in place. Now I'm trying to keep the lengths the same so that the preamp actually works as it should. I seldom build amplifiers with preamps in it. I do from time to time. And one of the biggest things is to try try and keep these lengths right here as short as possible. Okay. What is nice is I get to cut at least an inch off of that one. Just be better for the pass-through tune, which we'll have to go back through as well and see, since we're using a different relay. Preamp's the same, but the relay's different. So we'll have to go back through and check that and find out if it needs any more capacitance or inductance or what it's going to be calling for the system. Yeah, but it's in there. We might as well, we might as well go ahead and make it useful. That's kind of my opinion on that. Plus, what would we do with the other switch? The people at work, they still try to figure out how in the world I'm able to do this, tinning or soldering a single wire with just one hand, holding the solder and the wire. They keep saying, "You're weird. I don't see how you can do that." All it takes is giving people about 150 or 200 of the old 23 channel radios when you're young and saying, "Here, wire mics for these." Gee, Christmas. You know what kind of aggravation it is to go through like 20 variations of mic wiring Oh my gosh. I was never so glad in all my days when somebody decided to go ahead and say, let's stay with the Cobra wiring diagram and wire them all the same. Now, if only we could get that with cell phone chargers. That would be awesome. Which they're coming along on that. I mean, that's came a long way as well. If you guys all remember from, back in the early to mid '90s, when cell phones were finally affordable to the average customer. Once that happened, Lord, I mean, Nokia, I think, was the only one that actually stayed with the same charger for a good portion of you know, their setup. There was what, like 40 different cell phone chargers, and then they started doing all this crazy stuff where you had to buy you know OEM chargers, or the phone would recognize that it was not an OEM and wouldn't charge. And yeah, I'm so glad we're through that stage. Do 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 do. Lots and lots of chokes. Yeah, I called one company about making a specific choke that I want. The only problem is they want me to buy like 1,000 of them, and it's like, gee, man, Christmas, it's like a 5-year supply. I'm just not willing to spend that much money at this time. Because well, I could buy transistors, resistors, other things that I need. At a much more realistic price. to get a particular choke that I want made. If I order a small quantity of like 250, which to me is pretty good size, it should be more than more than an adequate amount in order to go ahead and, I would think, make it. But they want to have, they want to go ahead and have 1,000, 5,000 of them made at one time, and it's not an unusual it's not an unusual choke as far as the inductance. It's just I want one made a certain way to make my life a little easier. If I sold 3 amps a week, I could justify the expense because it would save a whole lot of wiring. There we go. Yeah, actually 3, that's what we're going to be putting into it. He's got a radio that's going to have quite a bit of drive that's going to be going into it, so that's part of the reason why we're building it as such, but he's just going to be using radio drive. So I think you did a base, if I remember right. You did a base on the same type of platform. With what the gentleman was wanting for a driver, it worked out pretty much ideal. So it's kind of the same scenario here. Good, good, good. All right. Let's get a couple of metal clads here going on. I've got a bunch of these that are already pre-sorted and ready to go. There's another couple of hours worth of painstaking stress. I mean, granted, I know they're 1% when I buy them, but even at that, I try to go just a little bit further. Okay. Just easier to put these on now than what it is whenever we go to do it inside the amplifier. Typically, on the metal clads like this, I like to go ahead and put that solder wick down inside the different layers. That way I know I get a good bond from one layer to the next, and that I don't wind up with one that's not quite 1,000 puff. Because if you don't get all the layers actually soldered, you may have 1,000 on one and 850 on another, just for an example. It's all relative numbers because it just depends. I've not done the mathematics and peeled them apart one at a time to actually see what it is per layer, or approximately per layer. I need a little more solder on that one. Only thing we're after is just to get them tacked, and then I'll go back and we'll make sure everything's right where we want it. Okay. No, actually, it's not leather. It's actually silicone. It's actually a silicone mat. It grips to the table really, really, really well. Especially where I've got the clear vinyl that I've got as a secondary protectant. Um, this stuff, you can literally pour molten lead on it and not have to worry about it. 100-watt soldering iron. Like I said, it's great. The only bad thing about using this, I wished I would have got just a little bit smaller to a certain extent. Um, yeah, that's hot. Uh, like I said, these are great mats. If you do a lot of radios, I wouldn't recommend it. Not without using some kind of a towel, like a cloth towel or something like that. The only reason why is it's actually very, very difficult to get loose pieces of solder. So anything that is left, and it's kind of a trade-off too on that early. It's great because of the fact that I don't have to worry about where any of the little fragments that would normally get blowed back up or what have you, even if you're blowing something out close by it. Um, you can take it and just rinse it back off and clean it, put it back on, and it's great. But the more you do on it, like I said, you'll wind up with some of the grit and some of the little splatter balls and what have you that is normally stuck to your table. Actually, the mat, you can wipe it off, but the mat actually holds it in place. So it's kind of a trade-off, in retrospect to that. Okay. Just make sure I've got all the clearance I need before I go to the next step. All right. Take care of these since I've got to go back and look at the 120 puffs and see what they are. And there's that. And one more. Good old 3. All right. Some schmoo off of these. All right. Let's go ahead and test these. See where we're at. $19.5. $16.7, close enough to 117. It's only about half off. $19. $117.8. Yep, those are all close enough. We can go ahead and use those. Okay. And start clearing some of the flux as we're going along here. We'll do a wash here in a minute and keep it going. All right. All right. I'm happy with that. Now let's grab. This is another thing I've got to take a whole day. I may do that later on this week since I'm not going to be able to get into anything in big depth. I need to go back through and start matching up some more of these. Pretty doggone close. 391, 394. 92.5. That's close enough. They're only within a puff. Well, good morning, Wayne, and happy Easter to you, buddy. I know you popped in there late this morning or early this morning, depending on how you look at it, since we're on two sides of the world. I don't know what kind of rosin core they used on this to solder these transformers when they put them together, but wow, they have got a stink. Okay. Now she's starting to look more like an amplifier again. Yeah, it's starting to look more like it should, shouldn't it? All right. Now I got to try to fit this baby back down in there. Should be able to get the Guggenheimer down in there. I was actually hoping that I was going to have just a fraction more room up here in front, because I actually wanted to put that up here, but sometimes you got to put it where it wants it, not where you want it. Yes, I do, buddy. I sure do. You know, one of these would look good in your front room next to that radio. A little bit small for what you're looking for, but you never know. Christmas is only what, 8 months away. All right, let me get some wire here so we can go ahead and wind these up as well. Let's see. Trying to think, because of the amount of room that I've got, as far as which way I should go with the combiner, because I know that I've got to change the way this is set up in order to go ahead and make everything function as it should. So that's part of what we're looking at right now. I know they had this in there up front, but I also have to be able to get in there to tune this. So that's the other, that's the other $1 million question, is which way to go with the combiner circuit. So right now, that's kind of the hard thing to figure. Sorry guys, just in kind of deep thought at the moment as we're winding this. Like I said, trying to figure out which direction I want to travel as far as with the input combiner. You know, since we're incredibly limited on our physical case size, and I want to go ahead and make sure that everything's nice, set up, and friendly to actually get up here to the front. You know, because once I put the capacitor that's going to be used for the input, I may have to go back and change in order to go ahead and set it on frequency and get everything just as it needs to be. So that's a beautiful wind. Sad part of it is I just did 2 rights and I have no left. It's okay. That is an easy fix. There we go. Remember, I still have to put the rest of the biasing circuit in here. That's the reason why, like I said, I got to be real careful how everything is setting in there at this point. Yeah, Wayne, it basically is. It started out, you know, in its lifetime as a midnight special with some of these lovely transistors. I don't know if the light's too bad or not, but they're DEI 1446s. You know, the amp had a problem. The transistors were actually all still good. The problem was the input reflect had about 3.5 watts of reflect going back to the radio. So that's what actually spawned the whole, well, let's go ahead and send it in and get it redone. So that's what's actually started this whole project. Um, since the transistors were being a little bit of a pain to take out, it was just simpler since they didn't actually glue these down. Most of the time, well, actually there is a little bit of, no, I guess that's just cleaner or something. You know, these, you know, most of the time I typically do glue mine down. Um, and the reason why I do is so that everything actually holds in place and you're less likely to have any of your transistors bend right here in these points, especially if you put it in a pickup truck during shipping, what have you. You know, those tabs are not always the best that they've been using here in the last, you know, few years. So, you know, it just gives a little bit more support. I intentionally use very cheap glue because all I want to do is basically just bond it so that if need be, I can heat it up. Most of the time, once these get hot enough, um, the glue starts to let go, but it has just enough, you know, just enough adhesion that will keep stuff from actually moving. So, um, you know, in that particular circumstance, you know, if you have to replace the pill strips, it's not that big a deal to get up underneath one of the corners and just pop them off, and away you go. So that's part of the reason why, like I said, we went ahead and just replaced the pill strips. You know, you're looking at $1. It's not worth the aggravation at this point. So, all right. Let's get a combiner made for that. Yeah, bear with me here, guys, because things kind of going downhill for the evening around here. So that way we don't have to worry too much about all the noise and interruptions and what have you. All right, so we're going to actually make a complete new combiner, and the reason why is this is actually a different ferrite than what they used here. On this one, you know, you're going to be able to see, for example, you know, shiny, not as shiny. It's a different composition, so we're not going to be using the original one. We're going to go ahead and use what we need for the inductance for that. So There is multiple ways of making this too. Let me get rid of that paper here. Alrighty. Guess I didn't realize I was live on YouTube. Okay. Feed point down there a little closer if we can. There we go. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm contemplating as far as my direction of travel for where we're going to put this. Reason why is because if I go ahead and mount this inverted like this, I'll actually be able to bring everything up directly up underneath, and I can still get and have a little window to be able to get in here to change out or adjust my capacitance on the input. So it's going to really work out, I think, for the best if I do that. So let's go ahead and get these trimmed back just a little bit. Okay. These all taken care of here. And voila. Um, generally speaking, whenever I build the amplifiers, 98% of my testing, what I typically do and tell people is to run them at about 14.5 on the voltage. Now, you can, and there are many guys out there that run them all the way up to 14.9. Some people even run them at 15.2. I'm kind of old school on that. I like to see stuff last. So generally speaking, about 14.5, especially now that we've gotten rid of the DEIs. The DEIs, really, if you went over the 14 volts, is when you usually had problems out of the DEIs. Um, Now this is in relationship to the 2879 version. I didn't have much experience building with the 1446s. Primarily because of the output power and the difference in price. Really wasn't worth even messing with, back in the day. So, with that in mind, like I said, I didn't really mess with the 1446s, so I don't know if they were a little more tolerable, as far as voltage was concerned. I know that some of the other amplifiers, they when you use the 2879s, they were just absolutely horrid. I've still got one amplifier that I've had for, like 4 years. I've been meaning to get through and redo for myself, that I built, and it was a 6 pill with the 2879s. Still good case. All I need to do is just order a new board and pull everything apart and rebuild it. So eventually that's coming. Hey, good afternoon or good evening, Squirrel, and hopefully you had a happy Easter with you and all your little yahoos. You'll have to tell Harvey I said hello as well. I'm sure he's been busy. Yeah, it's been kind of lonely around here. My daughter's moved out and she's taken her cats, and since mine passed away, um, you know, late last year, the house kind of seems empty without without a pet in the house. So, all right, let's get a resistor here. Do I want a squirrel? uh, I've actually thought about that. I don't know what their life expectancy is, but I know that they, from what little I've seen as far as some of your little videos and some of the different semantics, um, I've actually thought about getting a pet squirrel for here. I'm just not sure what all he would run off with. Um, that would probably be my big thing. I know I wouldn't have to worry about my plants because I don't think they would like cactuses very well, as far as a whole. So I think I'd be okay with the whole thing there. Around 10 years. Really? Wow. I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea that a squirrel had that kind of a lifespan. All right, so what I'm installing here is just a small 100 ohm resistor. A lot of people, that's always another one of those million and one things that people have all different views on using these as far as what value, or not necessarily what value, but you know, how big or how small or anything like that. And one of the nice things, especially when you're dealing with the input, you can actually get by with something as small as like what I've got in here. Um, it's just a 1%er, but it's a 1 watt resistor. All it does is essentially help equalize the input. Now I have seen some instances where what has to be done actually is uh, ba, 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 yeah, where you have to actually leave that off depending on the actual build, in order for the input to lay down flat. Ran into a scenario, for example, on a 6-pill, which a 6-pill is kind of an unusual creature, to say the least. So that's part of the reason why, whenever you're looking at some of the different amp builds, you'll see some guys that will never, ever, ever use them, and then you'll see people like me that I use them quite frequently. Um, the only time that I usually clip them out is if there's an issue with the stabilization. So um, it's one of those where if I can use it, I try to use them every chance I get, just because of what they are. So they actually help with the physical input. Yep, give me a second. No, I'm just doing a live feed. And getting to a stopping point. This one side in place. All right, so I got that tacked in there for right now. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually take a break for a little bit, guys. I'm going to go get some dinner. When we come back, I'll go ahead and wrap up the rest of the input here, and we'll see how this thing tunes out and do the biasing and all that good stuff. So catch me a little bit later, guys. Like I said, we are going to come back to this. I just want to go ahead and get some lunch taken care of. We can spend just a little bit of time with everybody that's here at the house prior to them going to work. So everybody take care. Have a blessed weekend.